Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna, we're studying from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, entitled Purusha Sukta Confirmed. We're on text 31, thank you. 31. And today is May 24th, 2020, text 31, Canto 2, Chapter 6. Narayane Bhagavati Tat Idam Vishvam Lakitam Grihita Maya Uguna Darga Adao Aguna Swata Raine Bhagavati Tadidam Vishwam Ahitam Gita Mayuruguna Sargada Bhaguna Swata Narayane Bhagavati Tadidam Vishwam Ahitam Gita Mayuruguna Sarga Bhaguna Swata Narayane Bhagavati Adidam Vishwamahitam Gita Mayuruguna Sargada Bhaguna Swata
Narayane Bhagavati Adidam Vishwami Ahitam
Taridam Vishwamahitam
Gita
Mayuruguna Sargada Bhaguna Swata
Narayane Bhagavati Tadidam Vishwam Ahitam Krihita Mayoruguna Sargada Bhaguna
Swata
Narayane Bhagavati Tadidam Vishwamahitam Grihita Mayuruguna Sargada Bhaguna Swata
Narayane Bhagavati Adidam Vishwamahitam Gita Mayuruguna Sargada Bhaguna Swata
Narayane Bhagavati Adidam Vishwamahitam Gita Mayuruguna Sargada Bhaguna Swata
Sargada gunaspata.
If anyone else would like to recite the verse. Okay, this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, Text 31. Narayane,
Narayane,
unto Narayan,
unto Narayan,
Bhagavati,
Bhagavati,
the personality of Godhead,
the personality of Godhead,
Tatidam,
Tatidam,
all these material manifestations,
all these material manifestations,
Vishvam,
Vishvam,
all the universes,
all the universes,
Ahitam,
Ahitam,
situated,
situated,
Grihita,
Grihita,
having accepted,
having accepted,
Maya,
Maya,
material energies, Uruguna,
Uruguna,
greatly powerful,
greatly powerful,
Sarga Adao,
Sadhgana,
in creation, maintenance, and destruction,
creation, maintenance, and destruction,
Aguna,
Aguna,
without affinity for the material modes,
without affinity for the material realms,
Svata,
Svata,
self-sufficiently.
self-sufficiently.
Translation. All the material manifestations of the universes are therefore situated in his powerful material energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the material modes. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The question put by Narada before Brahma concerning the sustenance of the material creation is thus answered. Material actions and reactions, as the material scientist can superficially observe, are not basically ultimate truth in regard to creation, maintenance, and destruction. The material energy is a potency of the Lord which is displayed in time, accepting the three qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance in the forms of Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. The material energy thus works under the supreme spell of his lordship, although he is always transcendental to all such material activities. A rich man constructs a big house by spending his energy in the shape of resources, and similarly he destroys a big house by his resources, but the maintenance is always under his personal care. The Lord is the richest of the rich because he is always fully complete in six opulences. Therefore, he is not required to do anything personally, but everything in the material world is carried out by his wishes and direction. Therefore, the entire material manifestation is situated in Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonal conception of the Supreme Truth is due to lack of knowledge only, and this fact is clearly explained by Brahmaji, who was supposed to be the creator of the universal affairs. Brahmaji is the highest authority in Vedic wisdom, and his assertion in this connection is therefore the supreme information. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshud Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sva Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sakanaraganatanditam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagna Lalita Shri Vishakam Hitam Stra Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namaskate Tapta Kanchana Gauranga Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vanchakalpati Yurvyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Desha Tarine Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chavanarotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat yutama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Text 31, chapter 6, canto 2, Srimad Bhagavatam. Narayane Bhagavati Tadidam Vishwamahitam Grita Mayuruguna Sargadaba Gunasmata. This is Lord Brahma speaking to his son and disciple Narada Muni. All the material manifestations of the universes are therefore situated in his powerful material energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the material modes. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we're speaking here about aspects of creation, maintenance, and destruction. And we hear a lot that Brahma, who is a guna avatar, means he's an incarnation of the mode of passion. So he creates. And Vishnu, who's also a guna avatar of the mode of goodness, means. And then Shiva, who is a guna avatar, means an incarnation of the mode of tamas, destroys. So if we look at it, in one sense, to create something at such effort, well, that's true. But harder than creating is maintaining, right? Like I created something, I did something. Okay, it's nice, it's an accomplishment. A greater accomplishment is maintaining it for a day, a month, a year, 10 years, generations. That actually requires a deeper determination than the creation.
Goodness.
Okay, that's goodness, exactly. So Vishnu is a full expansion, not a partial incarnation. Vishnu is a full expansion of Krishna. And that's why Vishnu is supreme. Nate vidu svartakatim hi Vishnu. Prahlad Maharaj says, yes, that those endeavoring just for material happiness, they don't understand that Vishnu is the ultimate goal. So that's why, like, one who's truly a Brahmin is only interested in serving and worshiping Vishnu. Brahmin is a true Brahmin is in the mode of goodness. So there won't be Shiva worship or Brahma worship or Indra worship, maybe for other varnas and other things. But if one truly in goodness is only interested in Vishnu. So from a scholarly point of view, this practice of bhakti yoga, from a scholarly point of view, it's not Hinduism. It's called Vaishnavism. Vaishnav means those who serve Vishnu. Those who serve Vishnu. And say, well, I heard a Hindu. Okay, well, you can learn something else now. It's called Vaishnav. Even more properly, although this term is not so well known in scholarly circles, you can say we're Krishnaites. Okay, but my preference is not to put any label. That, okay, we're aspiring to follow Srila Prabhupada, aspiring to practice a process of self-realization and God consciousness called bhakti yoga. So there's these three prime demigods, there's tens of millions of demigods, but three prime demigods, Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu. Vishnu is supreme, in charge of maintenance. Maintenance, that requires going, in any project, maintenance requires going deeper than creation or destruction. So Vishnu is supreme. I mentioned about Hindu, just for those who might not be aware. So, yeah, so Hindu is a misnomer, although it's become a very popular term, including in universities, that basically, as Srila Prabhupada describes, so there was a river called the Sindhu River, and on one side were Muslims, this may be 1,000, 1,200 years ago, something like that, and on the other side there were hundreds of different sects or groups that practiced different forms of religion based in some way on the Vedas. So the Muslims would point to the other side of the river and just lump them all in and call them Sindhus. And over some generations, the S got mispronounced as an H. So the term Hindu is a misnomer. Even theologically, or emotionally, sometimes I've been heard to say, I'm definitely a Jew before I'm a Hindu. That's actually true for me. Okay, because if I look at all of the so-called religions or paths, Hinduism is what I least identify with. And so for some, it really is. And for some, that might be surprising because, well, you chant this mantra from Sanskrit. But if we look theologically, that, okay, like the Eastern forms of theology, Hinduism is known as like, pantheism, and there's millions of gods and things like that. Buddhism is like a non-theistic non-theology. Okay, the idea that the ontological ground of reality is void, is nothingness. Okay, and then if we look at Krishna consciousness, about the actual original culture of the Vedas, it's monotheistic. So there's one God. Sure, God has so many administrative helpers, which are called demigods, so many expansions like that, but there's one God. And so that's in that core theological point, this bhakti yoga is so much more similar to the Middle Eastern paths, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, than to Hinduism or Buddhism. Okay, so as we were a point in Eze's class and the discussion yesterday is, yes, we want to cultivate the mode of goodness. We want to cultivate the mode of goodness while not making it the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is this pure devotional service, which is pure devotional service to Krishna, Vishnu, and that's Shuddha Sattva, that's transcendental to goodness, because mundane goodness always has some passion or tamas mixed into it. And so that's why in that verse, Nasta praise Bhagaveshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavat Yutamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. That's a verse from Sutta Goswami where he says that by regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by serving the pure representative Bhagavatam, like Srila Prabhupada, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And then one develops an attraction for the messages of Sri Krishna, and then devotional service is irrevocably established in the heart. And when devotional service, when we're steady, which can happen more or less even before all tinges of the modes are gone. But when we're steady in devotional service, like, okay, whatever is happening, even in my mind, I'm continuing to take shelter in Shinpatam Swakada Krishna Punya Shravan Kirtan, and hearing, chanting, and serving Prabhupada, and coming to morning program, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, then the devotee experiences freedom, true freedom, from lust, anger, greed, from the effects of the lower modes, and then the devotee becomes completely happy. Stitam sattva, completely happy and satisfied. Okay, so an analogy often used. Sattva can be compared to the airport. Like if we want to get to a destination, if I want to fly to Europe, okay, so the Orlando airport is the best platform from which to get to Europe, right? Okay, but if I'm sitting at the airport, and I'm very comfortable reading a nice book, there's music playing in the background, I got 4 seats to myself, this is a nice arrangement, and they call my flight, and I don't get on, well, in a sense, that's unfortunate, because the purpose of getting to the mode of goodness is as a launch pad for transcendence, for pure devotional service. In a sense, there at the Orlando airport, I'm no closer to Europe than I was in my home in Alachua. Okay. So we don't want to neglect. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mam Shyoga Vicharina Bhakti Yogin Sevte Saganan Santike Tan Brahma Bhuyaya Kapate. So we don't want to neglect goodness. Krishna says one who's engaged steadily in devotional service is automatically in Shuddha Sattva, above the modes of material nature. So that's true, and that's nice. That's a philosophical truth. It could be a unhumble mistake to think, well, I'm engaged in devotional service, so I must automatically have all the qualities of goodness. Okay, so kind of like through the grace of Srila Prabhupada, Krishna's representative, then I've stumbled upon, I've had revealed to me this transcendental process, this process which is transcendental even to mundane goodness. And that doesn't mean that I and my consciousness or my habits are transcendental to goodness. It doesn't mean that I, only sleep as much as required and only eat sufficiently to keep body and soul together, and that I am an emblem of tolerance and cleanliness. No, so for my process of bhakti yoga includes and involves consciously cultivating the qualities of goodness, not to make them the ultimate goal, rather to strengthen my foundation for enthusiastically and patiently performing bhakti. So part of my process of bhakti is to practice being tolerant when I feel impatient, not assuming, of course I'm the most tolerant, compassionate person. I chant Hare Krishna. Practicing cleanliness, because my tendency is to be influenced by unclean lower modes of nature. Like that, practicing truthfulness, particularly in those times when it seemed like this would be a convenient time to lie. Let me practice the sattvic, brahminical quality. So that's why the term there, Vaishnava Brahmin. A Vaishnava is automatically a Brahmin. And this, okay, well, so Vishnu is supreme, and then Krishna is the original Vishnu. Now this is a bit complicated. It's a bit complicated because Krishna, it's this in many places, but for example, in the 3rd chapter of the 1st canto of Bhagavatam, it describes about 24 incarnations of God. And then it concludes, Ete Chamsakla Pumsa, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Svayam. It concludes, and Krishna is the fountainhead of all of them. Krishna is the source of all of them. Deeparcha evahita santarama pupekcha deepaete vivita ektu samana dharma yasta jugevahija Vishnu tayadi bhakti Govinda maripusham tamaham bhajami. Described there might be 1,000 candles, 1,000 sparks of light. Still there's that original candle. And maybe the sparks of light shine with equal brilliance. Of course, we get detailed. There are some qualities that Krishna possesses that even the other incarnations don't possess, like Ramachandra, Nrsimhadev, and Vishnu. But still there's an original candle, and that's Krishna, and that's according to the Vedas. Important point if we're speaking to someone who's has some trust or references the Vedas in some way. Ete Chamsakha Pumsa, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Svayam. Krishna is the source of all incarnations. Okay. And then Krishna's first expansion is Baladev, and then there's Sankarshan, and then there's Narayan, and then there's a chapter of Vyuha, and then a second chapter of Vyuha. It's all complicated, but basically there's a series of expansions that lead to the expansions that are directly responsible for the material energy, and that's the Vishnus. 3 Vishnus, starting with Mahavishnu, also known as Karanadakashai Vishnu. Second Vishnu is Garbhodakashai Vishnu, who's like Mahavishnu is the super soul of the whole material creation. Garbhodakashai Vishnu is the super soul of this universe. And then third Vishnu is Kshirodakashai Vishnu. And who is the super soul sitting right next to us in our heart, and Antarasta, Pramana Chantarastam, and within each atom, the super soul of each atom. Okay. So a principle here that Prabhupada alludes to is it just makes sense that if we think of the source, a basic logical principle, Janmadhyasya, which is that's where the Bhagavatam starts. The second line of Bhagavatam, after the first line of Bhagavatam is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The second line of Bhagavatam is Janmadhyasya Nito Vaya Itratas Chateshva Bhigeshu Svara. Prabhupada and Vyasadeva analyze that quite a bit. But Janmadhyasya Yata, logical. What exists in the effect must exist in the source. So Prabhupada will sometimes say, so does it make sense that the source is a dead stone or something non-personal? We're persons. So it makes sense that our source is personal. That makes sense. So Prabhupada's alluding to the science, empirical, material empiricism. There's also spiritual empiricism. When Krishna says, he says that this knowledge, this is directly experienced, which means the soul has the capacity to directly experience. The soul has senses, the soul has mind. So as we uncover our material senses, we experience spiritually more and more directly and fully, more and more directly and fully. And so, yes. So the idea, well, okay, if we look at modern or postmodern ideas of source, we have things like Big Bang and singularity, and string theory, and different things like that. Okay, whatever. And so, if we analyze, because like, at least when I was putting my mind to such things, like Big Bang starts with a singularity, and these are different terms that are used. And one important point is all these theories assume that there are dimensions to reality that we have no access to by our material mind and senses. So the Vedas, the Bhagavatam, also assumes there are dimensions to material and spiritual reality that we have no access to with our material mind and senses. And modern scientific theories make the same assertion. And so the idea is, we can see that such theories, it's looking for Krishna, because this idea of the singularity, the idea is it's smaller than the smaller. It's smaller than any subatomic particle, and it's more powerful. It's more powerful than a million nuclear explosions, more powerful than a million suns, and it's beyond time, and it's the source of everything. So they're looking for God. Even there's this term now, the God particle. They're looking for God, but we don't want to acknowledge a supreme person, a supreme intelligence. So we'll call it singularity or something that I feel I'm in control here. But if we look at the qualities, we're looking for Vishnu. We're looking for Vishnu. Okay. So we could say in a sense that everything is the kingdom of God. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matasavam pravartate. Iti madva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. Krishna says, he says, I am the source of all spiritual material energies. So in a sense, the material world is also the kingdom of God. That's true. It's God's energy. This chapter, this is leading up. The next chapter of Bhagavatam is also a fascinating chapter about incarnations of God. And then when we get to chapter 9, we're going to transfer to the conversation between Krishna and Brahma. This is the conversation between Brahma and Narada Muni. We're going to hear Krishna speaking the 4 seed verses of Srimad Bhagavatam and saying, Hame Vasamav Evagre, I existed. Only I existed before the material energy, not Brahma, not Shiva. So in a sense, just like we might say, everything in the kingdom is under the control of the king, and that's true. At the same time, there's also the capital or the king's actual palace. So this process of bhakti yoga, it's like Krishna's inviting us to come, not just from the outskirts of my kingdom, but Krishna's inviting us, come to my town, come to my village of Vrindavan. Come to my village of Vrindavan. And so there's a process for that. It's a process requiring humility, giving up the mentality, Shvaruham, Hambo, Isuruham, Balavan, Sukhi, giving up the mentality that I am this body and the whole world's meant for my gross or subtle sense gratification. It requires humility, submitting to the Supreme Person. So Krishna, through Vishnu, comes to, he visits the material realm. Now, an important point here is material or spiritual. Ultimately, it's a matter of consciousness. So like we can say a book, is it material or spiritual? A bank account, a relationship. If material sense gratification or material ego gratification is in the center, then it's material. If my purpose in using the car is truly to serve Krishna with love and devotion, then that car is spiritual. So we can think of material and spiritual in terms of consciousness, and also it's described in terms of geography. And so Krishna manifests in different ways to help us along. His main manifestation in this age, Namo Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddho Nityamukto Binatvan Namanamino, means he manifests in the form of his name, the name of God. Nam Namakri Bhavata Nijasara Shaktis Tetrabhita Nyamita Smarna Nakala. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expresses that, oh my Lord, you have hundreds and thousands, you have unlimited names, and each of them are purified. And kind of the success of our life is developing some attachment to chanting the names of Krishna, chanting the names of God. And to develop that attachment, because right now in conditioned life, we tend to be attached to hearing other names that won't be liberating, that won't be a source of joy and bliss. So it requires some discipline, some commitment, like I'll chant a minimum number of names per day, names of God. I'll chant a minimum number of japa rounds, and then by discipline, then we develop a taste. And so, and Krishna, Vishnu appear in their deity forms, To the conditioned soul, the deity forms, whether it's in the form of a painting or a tapestry or a marble or brass, the deity forms may appear material. But just like it doesn't work to make up any name and say, for me, that's the name of God. It's true, God has unlimited names. and they're all purifying. And if we chant any bona fide name coming down through the authorized source from Krishna himself, then that's powerful. Similarly with the deity form, right? So like in the Old Testament, the Hebrew, it's right in the first chapter of Genesis, I believe, right before the vegetarian verses in that first chapter. I think God described that he creates human, B'Tselem Elohim. You know, when I first learned some conversational Hebrew, I learned the term Tzilum meant photocopy. And I was a Bhakta in Ranana, and they would go, Bhakta Dev, could you make some Tzilumim of this and that? So then I saw that's the word that God uses in the Bible, that we're made as photocopies.
And specifically men, I think.
Yeah, precise. We're made as photocopies. So we're made in the image. So that means that God has an image. And there's so many personal references. Even in like the 10 Commandments, right? Like that. There's one commandment where it says like we do not worship idols. And that's maybe the one thing I got from like my Hebrew school classes. We shouldn't worship idols. Right? Okay. In that actual commandment, from what I've heard, the words that God actually uses is al panai. What he's saying there, al is a negative, don't, and panai means my face. So what he's saying there actually is, don't worship any form, don't worship any face except mine. So in that particular commandment where God's saying, where we get don't worship idols, God's making it very clear, I have a form, I have a face, worship that. Yeah, don't worship making a lot of money to enjoy life. Don't worship the golden calf. Don't worship, don't worship some mundane person in politics or entertainment or sports or something. Yeah, but do worship my form. Maybe some of you have heard me tell this story. So this was it's within the Haifa Krayot area, and some of our Matajis on Sankirtan, they were going in pairs, and they came to a mechanic shop, and it happened to be it was a Muslim man who was running the mechanic shop, and the two Matajis went in there, and they were showing pictures like from Bhagavatam and Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita, and the Muslim man went, haram, haram, which means horrible, horrible, because you're showing, this is idol worship, form, you're showing forms of God. And so the Matajis were very intelligent, and they said, well, clearly you're not against form. Huh? What do you mean? And they showed all around his office in the mechanic shop. It was the Hebrew or Arabic equivalent of Playboy and Penthouse magazine, and they had all sorts of forms up. So they said, yes. So it's a little embarrassing to tell, but anyhow, so they said, clearly you're not against form, clearly you like form. And then he became all embarrassed, and the only thing he could do was give his money to take the books. So it worked very well. But the idea is we're attracted to form, and there's form we can indulge in that will take us lower into misery, into the festival of misery that is the modes of material nature, material desire. Or we could transfer our propensity for form to the deity. Prabhupada sometimes gives the example of a mailbox, right? So just like, we say, well, just a mailbox, it's just some box. No, it's not just some box, it's authorized. So if we put a letter in an authorized mailbox, authorized by the government, authorized by the post office, then that letter gets delivered responsibly, maybe thousands of miles away. So it's not just a box, it's authorized. If I just create some box and then put it on the lawn and then it has no potency. So similarly, the deity form that's presented, that's manifest according to the authorized descriptions, that's powerful, that's authorized. Similarly with the name of God. That's not just like any sound vibration. So both with the deity and the form, that the form of God, including the forms that appear to our material eyes and mind, the forms of God, if they're authorized, then the form is non-different from the person that it reveals, just as the name of God, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Just like the names of Krishna are identical to the person that those names reveal. That's a distinction between absolute spiritual sound and form and relative dualistic material sound and form. In the absolute, the sound, the form, the smell, the fragrance, the taste are identical with the person that is being revealed. But Dr. Keith gave me a book, and it's by a scholar named Marshall McLuhan. So I don't know how much realization Marshall McLuhan has about deity forms of Vishnu, but Marshall McLuhan, apparently he's known for a statement which I think ideally expresses this principle. So McLuhan is known for this statement: the medium is the message. So again, I don't know how much transcendental consciousness he has, but that concept, that's the concept of the absolute, Binat Naminamina. That through the names of Krishna deliver the message of Krishna. The forms of Krishna deliver the message of Krishna. And the names are the message. The names are the personality of God, and the forms are the person. And just prasadam, the smell and taste of prasadam, gives us Krishna, and the smell and taste of prasadam is Krishna. The medium is the message. There's actually truth there. So this bhakti yoga, it's not a process of elimination, it's a process of transformation. We can look at all of our propensities, our propensity for form, our propensity to sing, our propensity to dance, our propensity to relate, to serve, to communicate, all of our propensities, and endeavoring to fulfill them in the material sphere. We talked yesterday about propensity for attention, endeavoring to fulfill them in the material sphere. Then we're frustrated. Prabhupada gives the example sometimes of like an animal, could be a human animal, in the desert. And there's maybe a mirage of an oasis, of a lake, and the animal runs. But just a mile away, or just 100 yards away, and ultimately the animal will die of exhaustion and heat in the desert because there's no water. There's no real water there. That means there's no water. But that's not true. There is water. Prabhupada talks about the non-personalist Mayavadis, kind of like the sour grapes philosophy, that I'm frustrated in trying to get water, trying to get nectar, trying to get fulfillment, trying to get bliss in material existence. And that's frustrating year after year, decade after decade, maybe lifetime after lifetime. That's so frustrating. And so I said, okay, so there is no real bliss. There is no real enjoyment. So Prabhupada makes the point, there is water. It's just not in the desert. Desert means material life. It means endeavoring. Endeavoring for the peace, the bliss, the satisfaction, the fulfillment, the security of the soul in that which is temporary, in that which is empty and hollow and will be destroyed by time. And so there is real water. There is real ever expanding bliss for the soul. And that lies in this spiritual life, in taking shelter. In those services, those propensities for service, spiritual service, which can never be taken away by anything material, even any material catastrophe. So this verse, text 31 of chapter 6 of Canto 2 of Srimad Bhagavatam, this verse reads, Narayane Bhagavati Tadidam Vishwamahitam Grihita Mayuruguna Sargada Bhaguna Svata. All the material manifestations of the universes are therefore situated in his powerful material energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the material modes. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your attention. I welcome at this time, if there's anyone wants to share any comments or realizations or ask any questions.
I'm there.
Daru, Hare Krishna.
Haribol. I just wanted to say it was interesting how you pointed out about. I really like the way you mentioned about the Hindu thing, because I had twice I've spoken, as professor would let me speak in his class about Hinduism, and twice he had to finish up some previous stuff on Hinduism before he could let me speak, and each time it was like nauseating to hear what he's presenting, that like, I don't follow this stuff at all. I don't believe in this stuff at all. I would never have been interested if I'd heard it, just like these kids are hearing. So anyhow, I also agree with you. Yeah, it's like the leaf, but it was really clear there. And how really it's so off. It's just very not what we're presenting at all. We, no devotee should think at all that we're even close. There's a huge difference, huge difference. Anyhow, I just wanted to say thank you for pointing that out and reminding me of how bad it really is presented in these days. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Daru Brahman. Yeah, I appreciate your emphasizing and appreciating that point. And like, yeah, I mean, I just never identified as a Hindu, and there's just so much layers of misconception. And so I like in discussions or classes sometimes to just make the point, to dispel misconceptions, to help people get to the essence and truth of what Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness actually is. And whenever, almost always, if not absolutely always, in my experience, whenever like the term Hindu comes into it, it just becomes like a roadblock to miscommunication. It just adds these layers of misconception, and so we like to try to do our part to pierce through those layers of delusion. Thank you, Daru. Ramachandra. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the highlighting the Hindu thing. I'm like personally super triggered by that, especially because like in my channel, people many times assume that I'm Hindu or I'm presenting something Hindu or Shmindu or all these different things.
Hindu, Shmindu.
And I have to many times to clarify what is actually what we do, Sanatana Dharma, Vaishnavism, and things like that. And within that, the process of deity worship, it's something that, being too, like, considering myself like growing up in the Jewish traditions, like that's the first thing that triggered me in Krishna consciousness. Like, why are there pictures everywhere of this Arabian, looking like an Arabian Indian guy, and that is God? I could not grasp it, and that was like the first like major block for me in trying out Krishna consciousness. And specifically in deity worship, I wanted to ask actually a question, because to me it seems like a big loophole for usurping. Let's say, okay, we know the form of God, so now anyone basically can make the form of God, and God is forced to be represented in that form, although it's like, of course, it's going to be according to the description, and Prabhupada gave so many, Prabhupada literally was drawing through Jadharani's hands, basically, and the other painters. But still, it seems, I feel about it that there's like a big loophole for me to, okay, force God to come into that form. let's say even if he comes into that form, or if someone else invites him, is he obliged to stay? Like, is there a possibility of Krishna actually leaving his deity form, or like remaining that form as an idol, although it's like the exact representation and description and everything? I don't know if the question.
Yeah. I think I'm understanding what you're asking there. Yeah. My understanding is, for sure, Krishna is not obliged. Just like, we can mouth syllables.
Or the Mahamantra, yeah.
Yeah, we can mouth syllables, but Krishna's not obliged. Ultimately, it's the grace of Krishna. Krishna's not obliged to reveal himself through any particular form or syllables, and so that's why if we're mouthing syllables, then it's like Prabhupada will say, quoting Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it's not the actual name of God. It's not the actual Nam. It's not Nam Prabhu.
Mm.
And so similarly with a deity, it could be the same deity form, and Krishna will reveal himself in that form to someone with the eyes of devotion, and to someone else, Krishna won't reveal himself, and for someone else might have a mentality of that it becomes idol worship.
Mm.
So it's, what's the condition of our heart, our consciousness in serving the personalities on the altar and in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra? What's our consciousness? And we want to at least try to be sincere about being sincere. Like, I'm not sincere. Okay, at least at some level I want to be sincere. And Krishna is noticing that and fanning the spark. So no, Krishna is not obliged. Krishna is not obliged. I mean, Krishna says he's in each atom. That's why it's described. An advanced devotee doesn't need deity worship. He or she might choose from inspiration to serve the deity, but they don't need deity worship because they're realizing Krishna in everyone's heart. They're realizing Krishna in each atom. They're realizing Krishna in all of the so-called material creation. They're seeing spirit everywhere. And the purpose of the deity manifestation is to help our material eyes and consciousness begin to appreciate God in the world. And so, so it's, Krishna's not obliged. Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, David. So I wanna now seek clarification on what you just said, because it kind of brought about some doubt. Like, okay, you're saying Krishna is not obliged to be in his deity form, and so are you saying, he's not obliged, he comes willingly every time? Or are you saying, he's not obliged, so sometimes, I don't know how to say it, it might just be an empty form instead of like a deity where Krishna is present?
Krishna is present in authorized deity form. At the same time, depending on the consciousness of the seer might perceive it as an empty material form.
Okay.
The seer might perceive it as an empty material form. But Krishna, again, he's not obliged. At the same time, he describes how he appears. And then it's a question of, how much is our consciousness prepared and qualified to realize Krishna's presence, in his name, in his form. That's why sometimes we can go We can go in front of the, I go in front of the altar to see the deity. I go in front of the altar to see the deity, or to see Prabhupada. But in some ways that doesn't feel true. And it might be more true to say, I go in front of the altar so the deity can see me. I go in front of the altar so Prabhupada and the Parampara, they can see me. Not that they're excited to see me, but the point is that, like, I don't have the eyes or the heart or the consciousness to see the deity. I'm just seeing material matter. But it's sort of like, okay, look, I'm showing up. Look, I'm showing to the deity. I'm showing there are other things I could be doing, and I'm showing up. So maybe I get some credit. Okay, like here I am. I'm showing up, and so there's some sincerity there. And the deity and Prabhupada, they see, okay, here's the spirit soul struggling in the material nature, and they're showing up. They're using their time, and they have enough, even though they might not have much realization of deity and holy name, they're showing up. And so I'm just saying that's a mentality I think about sometimes. Like, yeah, I'm not really seeing the deity, but the deity sees me. That I'm showing up, and I know there's purification in that process.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's a really encouraging perspective for me, because at least 99.99% of my experience is I'm seeing matter. So I really appreciate, you giving me that encouragement of, okay, I'm not seeing them, but they're seeing me. Maybe I'm getting some brownie points. I'm getting some investment in my spiritual bank account. That maybe down the road, then I'll get to see. So thank you for that. Thank you for that distinction. And I wanted to ask you also, okay, you made some distinctions between Vaishnavism and Hinduism. The primary that I recall you sharing is Hinduism is polytheistic and Vaishnavism is monotheistic. You mentioned that key distinction. I'm wondering if you would speak more to those distinctions, because this is predominantly applicable to my family. Sometimes they ask me like, oh, is what you're doing Hinduism? And I know that it's not. I say like, not really, but I don't really know. I mean, you gave me something that I can describe, but I'm wondering if there's more that you could say to how come it's not, because I would like to be prepared to be able to answer that question.
Sure. Okay. Thanks for your question. First of all, I wouldn't say, don't quote me on saying Hinduism is polytheistic. For sure, some forms of what goes in the name of Hinduism are polytheistic. At the same time, my impressions, what I know from what I studied from Srila Prabhupada. Okay, then otherwise, I took courses in religious studies in college 50 years ago or something. That Hinduism, my impression, it tends to be a mishmash hodgepodge. There's a lot that goes in the name of Hinduism. That's whatever you want it to be. It was about 6 years ago. I did a 6-day tour of Guyana, South America, English Guyana, and there's lots of Indies there. And I gave a lot of talks in Hindu temples, which I didn't do in my Israel time, and I haven't done much in my Florida time, but I did in my week in Guyana. And very, very wonderful people, very wonderful people. And just like on the altar, they've got everything on the altar. They've got everything. And Vishnu's there, and this one's there, and grandmother's there, and grandfather's there. I mean, they just got everything. And, this guru, that guru. Okay, so that's what it is. It tends, my experience, tends to be some hodgepodge, mishmash, and okay. And, okay. So, the key thing is, in Bhakti Yoga, Vaishnavism, Krishna consciousness, we are practicing the philosophy and process of self-realization of God consciousness that is the original culture and philosophy from the ancient Vedas. Okay? So that's what Vaishnavism, that's what Bhakti Yoga is. Authorized Bhakti Yoga. It's the original culture, philosophy, and process from the ancient Vedas, which historically speaking are like 5,000 years old. They're, of course, they're older than that, but as far as modern history. Now, an important point which we mentioned is if you look at all the Vedas, what do they say about Hinduism? They don't say anything. The Vedas don't mention Hinduism. Hinduism is a concocted word that got invented about 1,000 years ago. 900, 1200, the Muslims invented a word. Just like, well, this isn't so well known, but my experience with the Druze, the term Druze was also a misnomer invented by the Muslims. The actual name for the Druze is Muwahhidun, which translates as Sanatana Dharma. They're also from the Vedic culture. Anyhow, so this whole idea of Hindu, the whole word started like 1,000 years ago. And so this practice of Krishna consciousness predates Hinduism by thousands of years, even historically. Actually, it's eternally, trillions of years and much more than that. But historically, so what goes in the name of Hinduism tends to be somewhat loosely based on a body of literature called the Vedas. The Vedas are historically about 5,000 years old, and the term Hinduism came to existence about 1,000 years ago. What we're practicing is the original culture and philosophy of the Vedas. So there's a few pieces of substantial information that might be helpful in such explanations.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Thank you, Ezra. Thank you. Anything else?
Would you say that it's like an offshoot in a sense of the Vedic culture?
Yeah, what goes, and again, in the name of Hinduism, there might be hundreds of branches, just like there's probably more than 100 branches of Christianity and Islam. Yeah, the different branches of Hinduism are offshoots of the original Vedic culture. Vaishnavism is the original Vedic culture. Hare Krishna.
Could I,
Yeah.
could I just,
We have someone's trying to speak here. Kim?
Yeah, just a little bit more on that one question. So would you say that Hindus, people who consider themselves Hindus in India, would you say, the thing that gets me confused about them, and I think other people I speak to, is I kind of think they are monotheistic and that they think that there's one God and that they're worshiping an extension of God at one of his manifestations, but that there's still one God and then there's demigods. Whereas I think people view Hindus as, no, they worship many gods. And I don't think that's true. Would you say that's not true, that they really do consider themselves monotheistic and they're just worshiping one expansion of the God? Does that kind of make sense what I'm saying? Is that true, do you think?
Yeah, well, thank you, Kim. Well, it's true. It's not true because it's probably not accurate or helpful to lump them into one, because again, there's like hundreds of branches, and so you'll get Hindus will say Shiva is supreme, Indra is supreme. Now, what you're saying, it's very true about a lot of those who identify as Hindus. The idea is there are so many gods, but ultimately there's only one God. And Prabhupada said, usually that's a form of impersonalism, because their conception is ultimately everything is one. Ultimately everything is one, and it's kind of like one undifferentiated energy. And that one manifests as Shiva, Vishnu, maybe Krishna, 33 million demigods, and you can worship Yatamata Tatapata. You can worship any of them because they're all manifestations of the one and their ultimate conception of the one. Now, not all of them. There's so many But for many, maybe hundreds of millions, the conception of the one is a non-personal supreme energy without form, which might manifest in the forms of so many gods. So that's a sense in which they, as you're saying, many of them appear polytheistic, but actually their conception is there's just one, and that one is ultimately formless and like that.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Keith.
Yeah, so it was, I tell this to people sometimes that I dabble with it, but I can't have a hard time firmly fixing my mind as accepting it as a proper way to explain. Like, I'll just tell them that it's like the Vedic, from the ancient Vedas, but then I also say, like, or the Vaishnavas who worship the seed-bearing father of all living entities. Like, does that, like, I say that to people sometimes, but I sometimes doubt whether it's a good way to say it, because it uses that description in the Bible and one in the Bhagavad Gita. But
Aham bija pradapita, Krishna says, I am the seed-giving father of all living entities. Whether that's an effective way to present, well, we can judge it by the results. I can imagine, I mean, it's not a way I'll usually present, but I can imagine for certain people, maybe some populations you're speaking to, that really resonates with them and helps them understand that God is one and God's the father of all living entities, and just like our Father is a person, so ultimately God is personal. So if that's an effective way for you to communicate, that principle to people, then if it's working, we can palena pariciyate, or as Jesus said, we can judge a tree by its fruit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just wanted to highlight something that I heard from you from the lecture that I didn't like really grasp before, that concept. So I just wanted to mention that to see if I got it right from you. What I've heard from you, Prabhu, is that like, but by default, like, regardless if God appears in the form, in his manifested authorized form according to the description, by default he will be more present there if let's say we just take like a rock or something like that, just because it's like externally the authorized form.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, it's externally authorized form, and there's also the factor of our consciousness. Mm-hmm. So let's say Prabhupada is experiencing Krishna's presence in the rock a lot more than I'm experiencing Krishna's presence in an authorized deity form. So, but there's both. There is the form authorized, and what's our consciousness to realize the presence of Krishna. Both factors are there.
Yeah, because like why it was important for me to highlight that, because I feel like I was, in my experience with deity worship, which is still pretty much the same, like I don't experience any sort of Krishna consciousness when I look at the deity. And I see that many times I just find flow in the process of worshiping the deity, and then I think, oh, they're not worshiping it according to Prabhupada, or Prabhupada did not install the deity, or Prabhupada did not authorize, so Krishna is not there, so I don't have to bow down. Mm-hmm. But what I get from you now, that actually there's no harm in doing that, because by default Krishna is present there, because it is according to Prabhupada, it's in the Prabhupada description. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.